Today's project's interesting. We've got a Panda Model 3, which I think is post 11. It's also known as the Panda 312 technically. And we noticed that there was a problem. There was a noise from the strut on the left hand side. This is what happened. The spring on that side broke. And so you need to replace springs in pairs. And we figured, I didn't want to be messing around trying to take springs on and off with spring compressors. So I thought I would just get complete units and change the shocks at the same time, because no doubt the shocks have got a bit of wear on them as well. And if you do it yourself, it's not too bad. I think where we are, it would be about 150 to 200 euros a side for changing the springs, and the shocks, the whole units are 250 each. So I think it makes sense to do completely new front struts. Here we are. That looks, does that look similar? It's a Panda 312, and these are struts for a Panda 312. That looks the same, doesn't it?
Yep, it does.
Yeah. As you can see, it's reasonably clean. That's the drop link top nut, and that's those are the two nuts that hold on the shock absorber and strut. So what we need to do before we do anything, preparation is key with this job. We want to remove the ABS pipe and clean these nuts up and put some freeing oil on them, Rust-Oleum. So, get all the rust off that, some dirt. Now that that is clean, I'm going to use a good old can of Uncle Don's Rust-Oleum, good old American freeing oil. And that should bubble in. I'll leave that overnight. Just on the car jack, nothing fancy, but it's actually, you can see here, it's on an axle stand, and we're going to put a jack underneath the suspension so the whole thing doesn't drop down. We can get it the right height. There are two 17mm bolts. As you saw earlier, we cleaned these and we put freeing oil. You can try WD-40. We've put Rust-Oleum on them. It's an American brand. Same here, there's the drop link, and that was cleaned. That's why it looks nice and shiny, almost brand new. And that's another 17mm. That's fairly easy. You'll need to put an Allen key in there to stop it turning, to get it undone. Once all that's undone, we should be able to change the suspension unit. At the bottom of the strut, you've got two bolts holding it, plus you've got this, that's the ABS sensor, I think, that clips in there. And we'll have to undo that in a minute, which is a brake hose. Otherwise, it's just two bolts plus the drop link. The drop link, again, it has a Allen key in the centre. We'll look at that in a second. But for these, it's a bit odd. The bolt's 17mm on this side and 15 on this side. So and what you have to do is put a spanner on there and then use a socket wrench to undo them. You see, with that Rust-Oleum free oil, they're very easy to get off, but they're very long. You can't get a socket onto that size unless you get some very long socket, which I don't have, so they come off quite easily. And I haven't found any torque settings for these bolts, but I think they're going to be around about 50 to 17mm, about 50 Newton meters. This is the drop link, so I've got to undo the top of that. I've put on, I think it's a 4mm Allen key, and that will stop the bolt turning while I undo here with a spanner. And it's 16mm the bolt, and the bottom of the suspension is supported to take the load. In fact, it's jacked up slightly to take the load off these nuts, so I can release all that without having too much pressure on the bolts, otherwise I'll never get them out. Here's a clip, and that holds on the brake hose. It's off. I had to use both hands, and then that should, in theory, slide out. Let's come out. and in practice it does. So that's everything free. It's quite neat. The struts tops are here, so to actually get to them you have to take all this plastic work off. First thing we had to do is take off the windscreen wipers, and there's a mark there so you can see where to put the windscreen wipers back on, which is very handy to have a dirty windscreen. And this rubber bit doesn't need taking off, apart from we need to take that off, and that's probably it really. We can probably get the whole thing out. So we've got this very square looking Allen key which we can get a bar onto, and 19mm. I slackened it off first of all with the socket set, but then the shock absorber started turning. So now I've put so I've got the socket on here, 19mm, and now it's freed up a bit. And of course I put a lot of Rust-Oleum freeing oil, WD-40, whatever you like to use, on it, and left it for a day, having cleaned all the rust off. And as you can see, slowly but surely, we'll probably put the socket set back on here now, because I don't think now it's loose, so it's going to turn the shock absorber. But you need, it's a bit like the drop links, you need to put an Allen key in the centre to stop everything rotating. Small hammer or big hammer? Should we try the small one to begin with? See if they, yay! Oh, that's moved. What we noticed was this bolt was being pushed upwards, so the bottom was there, so we lowered the jack and that eventually came out of its own accord. And let's see, there we go. You see, so it's just held on by the top nut, which we're going to undo now. So that we slackened off, we can just undo that by hand. Take that top bit off, and then if you come around here, and there it is. Okay, so here's the old shock, and that's the broken spring which is sitting there, and every time I went over a bump it was making a noise, and maybe that whole thing could come out and the whole side of the suspension would collapse. It's not good anyway. And as I said, we just bought a complete new unit, because I think you may as well do the shock and the shock absorber and the spring at the same time. And we need nuts, and oh, there's a little present here. Chocolates, do you think? Oh no, brilliant, a complete set of nuts, including covers. Oh, what do they cover? That's a good question, really. There, the top of the shock absorber to stop it all going rusty. Those are our nuts for the side. I might put a bit of anti-rattle on there. In any case, I'll grease them. After we fitted the new struts, we noticed, took it out for a road test, felt really good, but the steering seemed to be pulling slightly to one side. So we dropped it down to the local garage and got the parallelism done, the tracking done. And you notice it's a question of toe-in of the wheels, so they're either pointing like that or they're pointing like that. Not quite sure which, but it's quite a big difference. Why is that? Probably manufacturing differences in the struts. You know, it can be a millimetre, one strut could be a millimetre shorter than the old one, and that affects the tracking, so you need to take that into account. You're very lucky if you can just refit or change stuff on the suspension and not have to do the tracking.